Okay, I'm going to try to go over the new warp trigger that's been added to the cheapskate project that lets you make a warp trigger. So you could use it for a kill trigger, you could use it to teleport players from one place to another, and things like that. Okay, so first things first, the template level, the default template level that's in the cheapskate project, that's in levels, template level scene. This level has a warp trigger in it now, set up like a kill trigger. Warp trigger is like a prefab. It exists in base level assets, in scenes, that's what Godot calls prefabs or blueprints. And it's in the folder here, warp. It's warp trigger TSCN. That's essentially the prefab, that you could drag and drop into your scene and use. So it'll come into your scene and it'll just be this. The way triggers work in Godot is there are two components. It's an area 3D, and then the area 3D still needs an actual collision shape as a child, and they work together. So my prefab is just the area 3D, and it's called like warp trigger, and then it has some custom components that you can set on the right hand side over here. But then you create your own collision shape, so that you can make it custom for everyone you put in the world. So let's look quickly at how the one in the level here is set up as a kill trigger. So it is a warp trigger, which is like one of these, like I said, just dragged into the scene, and then a collision shape 3D was created as its child, and of type box. So you can create multiple types by default, even import, load mesh. I usually just use a box, so I created a box, and so here it is. And I just made it a little bit bigger. What I did is I made this level smaller. It used to be 100 by 100, now it's 50 by 50, just on purpose. And then I made this, the collision shape a little larger. It's like 60 by 60, 60 by 60, yeah. And I made it like tall for no real reason. And then I just put it underneath a little bit. So it's underneath here and it'll catch you if you fall off the edge there. We can go off the edge, and the trigger catches me and sends me back into the world. So that's a quick demonstration of just how it functions. Cool. So there it is. Those are the two main components. You have when a warp trigger, you put it in the world, and then you create the collision shape how you want it, put it where you want it. And then you set the parameters. So the parameters on the right hand side here that you see when you look in the inspector, with this node selected, with the warp trigger selected, you look in the inspector over here. And the important things that you'll see is the node, that's going to be the destination. And then some state parameters, like your combo. What's going to happen with your combo when you get there? Are you going to keep it, or do you want to clear it? What's going to happen with your speed when you get there? Do you want to keep your current speed? Do you want to clear your current speed? Or do you want to go to your max speed? We'll just keep it. Same thing with your state. Do you want to keep whatever state you currently are, or do you want to force them off board? Do you want to force them on board? So these are sort of helpful things. Most of the time I think you'll just keep. Just depends what you want to do. But in this case, as a kill trigger, it's just going to zap you back. And where I put you, so what I decided as what the location, I just used the original spawn node. So in this level I already have a spawn node. This is where you originally spawned. So what I do is with the warp trigger selected over here, for that thing I can just grab the spawn node and drag and drop it right over top of that. Can also select, and here you'll see a hierarchy of all the nodes, just like the hierarchy on the left here, and you can select your node. There's my spawn node over there. So that's the really important thing with these the warp triggers. It's just a prefab over here in base level assets, scenes, warp, that you drag and drop into your scene, and then you add as a child, you add child node, a collision shape 3D, and then over here in the shape you add or create the shape that you want. So select from the default there and then start editing, and that's really it. And then it'll just work once you set it where you want it to spawn to. You could add another node anywhere, but right now that's how this one works. Cool. So that's the first part of this video, just a quick explanation. And now the second part is I'll use it and make a quick demonstration of how to use a teleport. So let's make a couple warp pads and teleport to some islands, right? That could be interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the floor and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to make it a lot smaller. So I'll make it 15 by 15, and then I'll move it over here, say, where do we spawn? We spawn facing this way, so that's perfect. Good. So here's floor number 2, and I'll move it over a bit so it's, you can't jump to it at all. And there we go. And then what I'll do is really quickly I'll make some just small like visual pads. I'll just use a box, just the normal box 3D whatever thing that exists here. There we go. I'll put it over here. And it won't have any collision, but I'll just put a material on it. I'll load one of my existing materials, something bright like this street light. Cool. There we go. So that's gonna be where I'll put my trigger. Since triggers are invisible, this just gives me something to look at in the world. Cool. So let's drag, and I'll put this here. I'll put this. I'll call this, trigger pad, or like trigger mesh. Sure. Trigger 1 mesh. You know what I mean? That's the mesh, the visual. Cool. So let's actually grab one of these. So here's the warp trigger scene. I'm going to drag it, put it into my level here. So here it is. It's called warp trigger 2. Let's call it trigger 1 because it's going to actually be our trigger 1. Just for fun here. So as you see, it's got an exclamation mark because it's warning us that it doesn't have a collision shape 3D, that it's not going to work without it. And that's fine because we know we need to make one. So we just go add child node. And then over here, when you search, you can just start typing collision. And you'll see collision shape 3D show up. So select it. And then now it's created a collision shape 3D as a child. And it's happy now. It doesn't have an exclamation mark. The collision shape 3D has an exclamation mark because we haven't created an actual shape yet. So it's just warning us. So over here in the actual inspector for it, you see shape and it's empty. It doesn't have a shape yet. So this is a lot like Rails, how path nodes need a curve, and like how materials need a texture. It's like this is the actual resource asset that's going to be, the core. So here we go. What's really cool again is you can, from the drop down here, you can select some pre-mades, which are usually mostly all I'm going to be using. Like a box is all I need right now, so I'll just use that. So bang, now this has shape. And then if you click on it, you can expand it and you see the parameters even. So here it is over here. Let's move it. Let's grab our whole trigger and move it over here to where our box is. Alright, cool. Good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect, but hey, we can. There, let's just align it perfectly. Nice, cool. So this shape, because it was 1 by 1 by 1 and our box was 1 by 1 by 1, they actually just kind of all line up. So that's good enough for me just for this quick test. So there we go. We have a trigger. Here's our trigger, and then we have the actual shape, and it's set up. So back here on our actual trigger, let's call this warp trigger 1 just so we know what it was, what the point of it was. And let's just call this warp trigger 1 mesh, whatever, that's just the visual that we put here, cool. So this is just so we can, I'll call this one kill trigger. And then we just know, like that's the one on the floor. Cool. So let's move this over here just so we have these things, close to each other and we can see them. So what we're dealing with right now is we have a second floor that we put out here in space. We have a little visible mesh so that we know where our jump pad, our warp pad is. And then here's our actual warp trigger and the shape that it's going to be using. So let's configure our warp trigger. So like I said, the things that it needs to know about is a node of where it's going to use as a destination. So where am I going? And we don't have anything yet. So let's put a node over there on that, the floor over there. So what I'll do is I can just like select our root level kind of thing here, add a child node. I'm just gonna add a node 3D. A node 3D is just a completely empty thing. So what I'm gonna call this is just a warp trigger 1 destination, right? Because that's gonna be our destination. It just put that at 0, 0, 0 because that's what it does when you create something. But I'm gonna move it over here onto our pad. So I'll put it over here, and that's where it's going to warp us to once I set it. So let's select our trigger again, our warp trigger, and look at the parameters, and then here's our node, which we haven't assigned yet. I can drag and drop this right into here, and then now it's going to use that as our destination. It will use that location and the orientation. So if this was like oriented like this, it would put you there facing in that direction. But I actually want to just facing just forward to the way it is like that. Cool. Let's put something over at this location so that we can see where we're going to arrive, right? Well, here, I'll just grab our box. Here's our mesh. Cool. So I'll grab this one and I'll just duplicate it. Bang. And I'll come over here. And call that warp trigger 1 destination mesh. And I'll move it over there. I can actually just use this location, just copy paste it, and paste it onto here. There we go. And I'm going to change its material. There we go. Just so you can tell it's different. So the blue one is where you enter. The kind of pink-orange one is where you exit. So we can test that really quickly. Let's make sure we're all set up appropriately. So what are we talking about here? We have I'm going to put this under it here, just again to organize. So we have our warp trigger, which has a shape. We have a visible kind of mesh so we know where our trigger is. It has a destination. That destination has been set in our trigger over here, right? We set our destination. There it is. And over at our destination, we also put another mesh just so we can see it and we know that that's where we're going to go. But there we go. So we're really ready. The most important part was that we put a warp trigger here and that it has a collision shape and that it has a node as a destination over there. So I'm just going to export this really quickly. Here we go. And then over there, you can see we have this trigger. Bang. We go through the trigger and we popped out over here. We can't get back because this isn't a trigger, right? It's just a mesh and just a node, the destination node. That other one has a trigger. So let's set up the same thing over here. And ultimately, because these are just really simple, we can just copy paste it. And so I'll show you that really quickly now. Okay, so let's kind of just duplicate these. That's the fastest and simplest way to do this. I'm going to select all of these. Bang, there we go. So we have our trigger, the visible mesh, the destination, and the destination mesh. I'm going to hit duplicate. So here we go. So I'm going to call it, yes, it is warp trigger 2. I'm going to rename these so it is actually warp trigger 2 mesh. Just, I prefer that naming kind of thing. Warp trigger 2 destination. And warp trigger 2 destination mesh. There we go. So it's very explicit. So
here we go. We have that, and this, right? So I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to slide them over like this. Maybe like this, whatever. Does not matter. I'm actually select all of these. Kind of center them better on the player.
So, and I'm going to flip these, right? So I don't want, I'm going to want these going the other way. So the trigger and the mesh, I'm going to move over here. And then the destination and the destination mesh, I'm going to move over here. And let's look at the top view. Cool. So this is going to work because we're not modifying the collision shape. So all I did to make this trigger is I copied this existing one, right? I copied it. So what that did is it also copied the collision shape. So we have a collision shape here. But what you have to understand about Godot is when you copy things, especially when they have things within them, like this collision shape has a shape within it. This shape is a shared resource. If you've ever noticed with a Path 3D, like one of the rails in this game, if you copy paste one and then edit the points, it'll edit on what the thing you copied it from also because it's a shared resource. If I wanted to edit the shape of trigger 2 and have it not also change the shape of 1, on the shape here, over here on the shape, I would need to make unique. And then if I edited it, it wouldn't edit the other one. It's now a unique resource. It's not pointing to a shared resource. That's very important to note if you're ever copying and pasting any triggers. Once you've made one, and it's easy to just start copy pasting. But if you want to change the shape of it, make sure you make unique. Otherwise, it's going to change the shape of all of them. And that's why on my base prefab, I only include the area and not the collision shape 3D because I don't want people to accidentally start changing the shape of it and it changes like everything in the level. So that's just a quick caveat. So we're able to do a quick copy paste here and not even bother doing that because we're not changing the shape of anything. But what's important here is this. Remember, we just duplicated this, so this trigger is still pointing for its destination node. It's still pointing at the one for destination 1. We want to be going to destination 2, which is this here, not the original one. Because again, we just copy pasted this, so the values were copy pasted also. So its destination, it was still pointing to this one. So we don't want our new trigger to still be pointing at that. We don't want our new trigger to point to that one, which it now is. You can see that, destination 2 over here, which is this, destination 2. Cool, so this should all work. We have set this now. We say, yeah, go to destination 2, keep combo, and this and that and the other. So that's pretty good. This should all just work now. We can quickly build it and check it. And you see how we have, and the reason we need to do this, like this couldn't be, we couldn't just put this trigger and make this trigger the same location of where you arrive, because you would arrive here and enter this trigger and it would teleport you back here, and you would enter this trigger and it would teleport you back here, and you would just be in a state of like instantly teleporting between both of them and not being able to move. So that's why you have to do, you could set up like delays, you could do scripts that catch you, add custom scripts that catch you when you exit and deactivate and stuff like that, but that's not how this functions. Just super basic system. You could extend it yourself, but yeah. So if you want to do two-way triggers, you need to make them separate triggers, or you're going to end up in an infinite loop. Cool. So let's export this, and we can see it running in the game, so we can go back and forth between the two triggers. There we go, we see our triggers. So I can come through this trigger, pop out here, return through this trigger and pop out here, and just keep going. So, woo! And it keeps our combo, like I said. So if I can skate this. Whoa. What? Whoa. And then keep this. Woo. Whoa. And then, yeah, we still have this one, the kill trigger off the side. Cool. So that's just a quick demonstration. Hopefully not too long-winded. I'll try to put chapters into this so that it makes sense and it's just easier to consume. Whoa! Alright, cool. Thanks for making levels. Cheers. Take it easy.